Dear students, in today's lecture, we are going to discuss the role of United Nations in promoting gender equality. Dear students, the United Nations plays an important role in advocating in advancing gender equality and women's empowerment globally. Since its inception, the UN has recognized gender equality as a fundamental human right and a key component of sustainable development. Through various mechanisms, programs, and initiatives, the UN works to address gender based discrimination, promote women's rights, and create opportunities for women and girls to participate fully in all aspects of society. Dear students, in this lecture, we will explore the significance of the UN's commitment to gender equality, the evolution of its efforts in this area, and the key UN bodies which has been dedicated to advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. We will also discuss the challenges and opportunities which UN faces in achieving its gender equality goals in today's complex and rapidly changing world. Dear students, first we will try to look at UN key bodies for gender equality. The establishment of UN bodies which are mainly focusing on gender equality marks a significant milestone in international efforts to address gender-based discrimination and promote women's empowerment. One of the most prominent UN bodies dedicated to advance gender equality is UN Women. UN Women, officially known as the United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, it was established in 2010 by the UN General Assembly. It was created by merging four previously distinct parts of the UN system. These four parts are like the Division for the Advancement of Women, the International Research and Training Institute for the Advancement of Women, the Office of the Special Advisor on Gender Issues and Advancement of Women, and lastly, the United Nations Development Fund for Women. UN Women's mandate is to accelerate progress towards gender equality and women's empowerment worldwide. It works to support intergovernmental bodies in setting global standards for gender equality, provide technical and financial support to countries, and lead and coordinate UN efforts to advance gender equality. This organization focuses on several priority areas like ending violence against women, promoting women's economic empowerment, advancing women's leadership and political participation, and ensuring gender responsive humanitarian action. UN Women also leads the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 5, which aims to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls by 2030. Another key body is Commission on the Status of Women. The Commission on the Status of Women is a functional commission of the UN Economic and Social Council, which was established in 1946. The Commission on the Status of Women is the principal global intergovernmental body dedicated to promote gender equality and the empowerment of women. It plays a key role in monitoring progress on gender equality, identifying challenges, and developing policy recommendations to advance women's rights. The Commission on the Status of Women holds annual sessions at the UN headquarters in New York, where government representatives, UN entities, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders gather to discuss and negotiate issues which are related to gender equality and women's rights. Special Rapporteur on Violence Against Women its causes and consequences. This special rapporteur on violence against women, its causes and consequences, is an independent expert appointed by the UN Human Rights Council to examine and report on issues related to violence against women globally. The Special Rapporteur conducts country visits, issues thematic reports, and engages with governments, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders to address challenges and gaps in preventing and addressing violence against women. So, their students, these UN bodies play an important role in setting global norms, coordinating international efforts, and providing support to countries in advancing gender equality and women's empowerment. By working collaboratively with government, civil society, and other partners, they contribute to the realization of gender equality as a fundamental human right and a key driver of sustainable development. Dear students, now we are going to discuss some key documents, some key resolutions which were passed by the UN for promoting gender equality. The UN has played a critical role in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment through various key documents, resolutions, and initiatives. Some of these important ones are Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It was adopted at the Fourth World Conference on Women held in Beijing, China in 1995. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action is a landmark document that sets out a comprehensive agenda for achieving gender equality and women's empowerment. The Platform for Action identifies 12 critical areas of concern, including women and poverty, education and training of women, women and health, violence against women, women and armed conflict, women in power and decision making, institutional mechanisms for the advancement of women, human rights of women, women and the media, women and the environment, the girl child and women and the economy. The Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action call for the full and equal participation of women in all spheres of life, the elimination of all forms of discrimination and violence against women, and the promotion of women's rights as human rights. Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. This convention was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 1979. It is an international treaty that sets out legally binding obligations for state parties to eliminate discrimination against women in all areas of life. This convention defines discrimination against women and outlines measures to ensure women's full and equal participation in political, economic, social, and cultural life. It also establishes a monitoring mechanism to review states' parties' progress in implementing the treaty's provisions. Sustainable Development Goals. The Sustainable Development Goals adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015 include Goal 5. Deals with gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. Goal 5 aims to eliminate all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls, ensure equal access to education, healthcare, and economic opportunities, and promote women's participation in decision-making processes at all levels. The Sustainable Development Goals recognize the interconnectedness of gender equality with other development goals and emphasize the importance of addressing gender disparities to achieve sustainable development for all. The last one is Security Council Resolution on Women, Peace and Security. The UN Security Council has adopted many resolutions on women, peace and security, like Resolution 1325, which was adopted in 2000. It was the first resolution to address the impact of armed conflict on women and the importance of women's participation in peace building and conflict resolution. Subsequent resolutions such as Resolution 1820, Resolution 1888, Resolution 1889 and the Resolution 1960 further strengthened the international framework for addressing gender-based violence in conflict and promote women's rights and participations in peace process. So, dear students, these key documents, these key resolutions by the UN provide a framework for action and guidance for governments, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders to work towards achieving gender equality and women's empowerment on a global scale. They underscore the UN's commitment to promote women's rights as human rights and advance gender equality as a fundamental principle of international cooperation and development. Now we'll try to understand the impact of UN initiatives on global gender equality efforts. The UN has had a significant impact on global gender equality efforts through its initiatives, various programs, and advocacy efforts. Now we will discuss the impact of these UN initiatives on global gender equality in detail. The first impact is normative framework. The UN has played a key role in establishing a normative framework for gender equality through international treaties, conventions, and declarations. Documents such as Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women and the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action provide a comprehensive framework for promoting women's rights and gender equality worldwide. These normative frameworks set standards and guidelines for governments to adopt policies and measures aimed at eliminating discrimination against women, promoting women's empowerment, and ensuring gender equality in all spheres of life. Policy advocacy and guidance. The UN also provides policy advocacy and guidance to governments, civil society organizations, and other stakeholders on gender equality issues through reports, research, and recommendations. UN agencies such as UN Women and other agencies offer evidence-based analysis and best practices to inform policy making and programming. The UN initiatives promote gender mainstreaming, gender responsive budgeting, and the integration of gender perspectives into all aspects of development planning and decision-making process. Capacity building and technical assistance. The UN also supports capacity building and technical assistance initiatives to strengthen national institutions' capacity to advance gender equality and women's empowerment. Training programs, workshops, knowledge sharing platforms help governments and civil society organizations to develop skills and expertise in gender analysis, gender sensitive programming, and gender responsive policy making. UN agencies provide technical assistance to countries in developing and implementing national action plans on gender equality, conducting gender assessments, and monitoring progress towards achieving gender-based goals and targets. Data collection and monitoring. The UN also plays a crucial role in data collection, monitoring, and reporting on gender equality and women's empowerment indicators. Through initiatives such as UN Statistics Division Gender Statistics Program and the UN Women's flagship publication, Progress of the World's Women. The UN complies and disseminates gender disaggregated data to track progress and gaps in achieving gender and equality goals. Monitoring mechanisms such as Global Gender Gap Report produced by the World Economic Forum and the UN Secretary General's annual report on progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals provide insights into global trends and challenges in advancing gender equality. Dear students, the UN also engages in advocacy and awareness raising campaigns to promote gender equality and challenge discriminatory attitudes and practices. International observances such as International Women's Day and the 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence raise awareness about gender issues, mobilize support for gender equality initiatives, and amplify the voices of women and girls. UN campaigns such as He for She movement and the Unite to End Violence Against Women campaign encourage individuals, communities, and institutions to take action to support gender equality, combat gender-based violence, and promote women's rights. So, dear students, the impact of UN initiatives on global gender equality efforts is significant and multifaceted. By providing a normative framework, policy, advocacy, capacity building, data collection, and advocacy and awareness raising activities, the UN contributes to advance gender equality and women's empowerment worldwide. However, challenges remain in translating commitments into concrete actions, addressing systematic barriers, and ensuring meaningful participation and representation of women and girls in decision-making process. Continued collaboration and concerted efforts by governments, civil society, private sector, and the international community are essential to achieve sustainable progress towards gender equality and women's empowerment. Dear students, now we will try to understand the various challenges, various barriers which UN faces in promoting gender equality. While UN has made significant progress in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment, it also faces several challenges and barriers in its efforts. The challenges emerge from the systematic inequalities, cultural norms, resource constraints, and institutional limitations. Now we will discuss the challenges in detail. First challenge is patriarchal societal norms. Patriarchal norms and attitudes perpetuate gender inequality and discrimination, posing a significant challenge to the UN's efforts to promote gender equality. Deep-rooted cultural beliefs about gender roles, responsibilities, and power often limit women's opportunities and access to resources, despite legal and policy frameworks which are supporting gender equality. Resistance to change and deep-rooted patriarchal structures within societies can hinder the implementation of gender-responsive policies and programs, as well as efforts to challenge discriminatory practices and attitudes. Gender-based violence, like domestic violence, sexual assault, and harmful traditional practices, remain pervasive and worldwide and undermines women's rights and autonomy. Addressing gender-based violence requires comprehensive legal and policy reforms, access to support services for survivors, and challenging social norms that tolerate violence against women. The UN faces challenge in effectively combating gender-based violence due to underreporting. Combating gender-based violence due to underreporting, insufficient funding for prevention and response programs, and inadequate enforcement of laws and policies to protect women's rights. Dear students, another challenge is economic inequality. Economic disparities between men and women, including wage gaps, unequal access to employment opportunities, and limited access to financial resources and assets, pose significant barriers to gender equality. Women are often overrepresented in low paying and informal sectors of the economy, and face discrimination in hiring, promotion, and equal pay. Structural barriers such as lack of access to education, skills training, and financial services further increase economic inequalities faced by women, particularly in rural and marginalized communities. Lack of political representation. Women remain underrepresented in political decision-making processes at all levels, including in government, parliaments, and international institutions. Despite efforts to promote women's political participation and leadership, structural barriers such as discriminatory electoral systems, lack of support networks, and gender stereotypes continue to hinder women's access to political power. Achieving gender parity in political representation requires transformative measures, including electoral reforms, quotas, support for women's political leadership development programs. Resource constraints. Limited financial resources and funding constraints pose challenges to the implementation of gender equality initiatives and programs. Insufficient funding for gender mainstreaming, women's empowerment projects, and gender responsive services women's hampers the UN's ability to address the root causes of gender inequality and meet the diverse needs of women and girls. Donor priorities, competing funding priorities, and geopolitical considerations may also influence resource allocation for gender equality initiatives, affecting the sustainability and effectiveness of UN interventions. Data gaps and monitoring. Inadequate sex disaggregated data and monitoring mechanisms impede efforts to assess progress and gaps in achieving gender equality goals. Data gaps related to gender-based violence, economic participation, education, health outcomes, and decision making limit the UN's ability to develop evidence-based policies and target interventions effectively. Strengthening data collection systems, improving data quality and availability, and enhancing monitoring and evaluation frameworks are essential to inform evidence-based policy making and track progress towards gender equality targets. Their students addressing these challenges requires sustained political commitment, multi-sectoral collaboration, and targeted interventions to address the root causes of gender inequality. The UN must prioritize addressing structural barriers, promote women's rights and empowerment, and mainstreaming gender equality across all its programs and initiatives. By addressing these challenges, the UN can continue to advance its mission of promoting gender equality and women's empowerment as fundamental principles of human rights and sustainable development. Now, we are going to highlight some successful UN initiatives in promoting gender equality. Dear students, the UN has launched several successful initiatives aimed at promoting gender equality and women's empowerment around the world. These initiatives leverage advocacy, partnerships, and targeted interventions to address systematic inequalities and promote gender-responsive policies and practices. Some of the notable UN initiatives in promoting gender equality are like He for She campaign. This He for She campaign was launched by UN Women in 2014. It calls on men and boys to become advocates for gender equality and take action to end discrimination and violence against women and girls. The campaign engages men as allies and champions for gender equality, encouraging them to challenge harmful stereotypes, support women's leadership, and promote gender inclusive policies and practices in their communities and workforce. He for she has mobilized millions of individuals worldwide to pledge their commitment to gender equality and has sparked conversations and actions to promote gender justice and social change. Safe Cities Initiative. The Safe Cities Initiative was led by UN Women and was implemented in partnership with local governments, civil society organizations, and communities. It aims to prevent and respond to gender-based violence in urban areas. The initiative works to create safe and inclusive public spaces for women and girls, address the root causes of violence, strengthen laws and policies, and provide support services for survivors. Through advocacy, community engagement, and capacity building activities, the Safe Cities Initiative has contributed to raising awareness about gender-based violence, improving access to justice for survivors, and promote partnerships to promote women's safety and well-being in cities worldwide. Unite to End Violence Against Women campaign. Unite to End Violence Against Women campaign is a global campaign led by UN. It aimed at preventing and eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls. The campaign calls for governments, civil society, and individuals to take action to address the root causes of violence, support survivors, and promote gender equality and women's rights. Unite to End Violence Against Women mobilizes stakeholders at the global, regional, and national levels to strengthen legal frameworks, improve service delivery, and challenge harmful norms and attitudes that perpetuate gender-based violence. Dear students, these initiatives demonstrate the UN's commitment to advance gender equality and women's empowerment as central component of sustainable development and human rights. By leveraging partnerships, advocacy, and targeted interventions, the UN continues to drive progress towards achieving gender equality and creating a world where all individuals can live free from discrimination and violence. So, dear students, in today's lecture, we have seen that the United Nations plays a crucial role in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment globally through its various initiatives, programs, and advocacy efforts. From establishing key bodies like UN Women to spearheading landmark documents such as Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the UN has been at the forefront of the fight for gender equality. Despite significant progress, challenges remain like patriarchal societal norms, gender-based violence, economic inequality, lack of political representation, resource constraints, and data gap. However, the UN has launched successful initiatives like He for She campaign, the Safe Cities initiatives, and Unite to End Violence Against Women, which demonstrate its commitment to drive change and empower women and girls worldwide. Moving forward, continued collaboration, political commitment, and targeted interventions are essential to overcome these challenges and advance gender equality as a fundamental human right and a key driver of sustainable development. By working together, we can create a more inclusive, equitable, and prosperous world for all genders. Thank you.